Alto Goldfield is a first-year student at the Ortigia School of Magic. Despite achieving perfect scores in all other subjects, he has just failed the summoning exam because he cannot form a contract with a familiar. As a result, he won't be able to proceed to his second year. His professor claims that this task isn't difficult. Some students have even formed contracts with rhinoceros beetles. Regardless, Alto must form a contract with any familiar before the faculty meeting the next morning. Lilia Cutelfute, Alto's friend, anxiously runs through the corridor to find out if he passed the test. Alto delivers the bad news, leaving Lilia saddened. Alto worked hard not only to gain admission to the academy, but also to excel in all challenging subjects. However, the one thing he can't do is summon a familiar, jeopardizing all his efforts. Still, he has until the next day to try again. In the library, he contemplates what he could summon. Familiar master compatibility is crucial, and Alto has already attempted various types. Perhaps now he should try something truly strange and unique. Suddenly, a book floats off the shelf above Alto's head and lands on him. He picks up the book, joking that it would be quite a coincidence if it were a familiar summoning book. Later, he realizes that it is indeed such a book. It's ancient, and he has no idea what he might summon. The pages are well preserved, and he can still read the magical circle inscribed within. He draws the circle on the floor and utters the magical invocation words. The circle begins to glow, an unprecedented occurrence. Alto completes the ritual by offering a drop of his own blood. A slender female figure emerges from the billowing black smoke, surprising him. From the billowing smoke emerges a slender female figure with sinuous curves, purple hair, red eyes, horns, and a pointed tail, all of which draw attention, along with her bust. The woman asserts that Alto is the only one who managed to free her. Alto wonders what he has summoned. She appears to be a naked human. Observing how innocent Alto seems, she smiles and asks what he wants her to do, anything at all. Alto is utterly embarrassed. He has likely never seen something so beautiful and seductive before. Stammering, he confesses that he wants her as his familiar. A golden light envelopes them, and multiple beams of light swirl around the two. The woman marvels at how much mana the young lad possesses. A contract forms, leaving marks on both of them. Alto bears a mark on his right hand, while the woman has one on her bust. She acknowledges that Alto is quite strong and accepts their situation. After all, a contract is a contract. With that, she will draw upon her master's mana in return. Swiftly, she approaches Alto and presses her lips to his, siphoning a significant portion of his magical power. She introduces herself as Vermal, a demon. Tracing her hand over her master's chest, she declares her willingness to do anything he asks. In response, Alto requests that she immediately put on some clothes. She playfully calls him a strange little creature. Does he truly prefer her clothed? Unless he's an eccentric wolf in the guise of a timid sheep, she muses. Blushing and incredibly embarrassed, Alto implores her to stop talking about it and just find some clothes. Unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, none of Alto's clothes fit her. He mentions that there are some of his sister's clothes in the bottom drawer. They should do the trick. Vermal then selects a short and sexy dress, asking her master if it looks good. He blushes even more. Somehow, she appears even sexier than before. Later, Alto explains about the Magic Academy and his problem with summoning familiars. Vermal finds it amusing but acknowledges that it makes sense. After all, Alto's mana is so vast that most familiars wouldn't dare approach him. His magic is like poison to many beings. Nevertheless, Vermal admits that she likes him handsome and potent. Demons are powerful illusory beings that have been feared by humanity in that world for ages. Some are capable of destroying entire nations. Alto asks why she accepted him. After all, she could break the contract if she wanted due to her immense power. Indeed, she could, but Vermal was trapped in that book for quite some time, and Alto was her liberator. Technically, she owes him a debt, and being his familiar is a small price for her freedom. Alto becomes curious. Why was she sealed? Vermal finds his curiosity interesting and explains that it was because she had done many impertinent things. Alto then wonders if he can truly have a demon as his familiar and questions Vermal if she is an evil being. The woman finds his comment amusing and says it's a matter of perspective. Later, Alto visits his academy professor, embarrassed as he introduces his newest familiar. The professor assumes Vermal is just an ordinary human, and despite knowing that Alto is desperate, this situation cannot be accepted. Vermal becomes agitated and slams her hand on the table, revealing the contract mark on her bust. The professor is impressed. Not only is it indeed a familiar mark, but the view is also quite beautiful, right? He becomes confused. Never in history has one person made another their familiar. Vermal asks who cares and instructs him to confirm quickly that Alto has a familiar. Thus, Alto passes the exam and can advance to the second year. The professor questions whether it's truly acceptable for her to remain as a familiar. After all, she would essentially be Alto's servant. She doesn't mind. Right behind them, Lilia seethes with jealousy, wondering who on earth that woman is. During class, Vermal is bold, constantly clinging to her master. This infuriates Lilia, who broke her pen in anger. She stayed up all night worrying about Alto. The professor reprimands the student, advising him to avoid such behavior in class. However, Vermal retorts that many other students hold their familiars, and one of the school's doctrines is to live alongside their familiars. The professor is left speechless and asks Alto to pay attention to the lecture regardless. Vermal gets carried away and implores Alto to give her more of that thick and potent thing within him. This is the last straw for Lilia, who stands up and shouts, demanding to know what they're doing. For yelling in class, the professor sends Lilia out into the corridor. After class ends, Lilia rushes to find her friend, seeking an explanation. Vermal asks who that woman is, and Lilia echoes the same question. At that moment, Alto recalls the previous day when Vermal mentioned disguising herself as a human. Magicians utterly despise demons, but fortunately, common magicians cannot see through her veil. She just needs to hide her tail and horns. Back in the present, Alto responds to his friend, stating that Vermal is an acquaintance. Lilia, consumed by rage, yanks off her tie and hurls it at Alto, challenging him to a duel. If he loses, he must confine his familiar to his room, using her only when necessary. In a duel within the academy, two individuals challenge each other, and the loser must carry out any order given by the winner. Vermal then declares that if Alto wins, Lilia will have to obey one of his commands. Lilia blushes, her mind racing with heated thoughts. The three proceed to an altar, where the battle is broadcast throughout the academy via magical screens. Lilia summons her familiar, Sylphide, a high-level wind spirit. Vermal is impressed that she can summon such a powerful spirit at her age. Lilia boasts that the combination of her powers with her familiar is incredibly potent. While Alto may be strong, without a familiar, he is no match for her. Consumed by jealousy, the girl hurls her magic with all her might. Alto considers dodging, but it's too late. Vermal steps in front of him, urging him to trust her. Vermal takes a direct hit, and Lilia believes victory is hers. However, through the smoke, a silhouette remains standing. Vermal hasn't suffered a scratch. Now it's her turn to attack. Concentrating immense power, she launches a deadly force at Lilia, who gasps erotically. Lilia loses the duel and must now obey her opponent's command. Excited yet embarrassed, she complies when Alto asks her and Vermal to be friends. Duel agreements cannot be broken. They shake hands, with Lilia addressing Vermal as Senora. Vermal finds this amusing, especially after Lilia's defeat. A sense of enmity lingers between them. Later, at Alto's home, he implores his familiar not to cause further trouble. Vermal rebuffs him, claiming no responsibility, and hints that the girl is smitten with him. But Alto says it's not possible. Lilia is a childhood friend, and she's always angry with him for strange reasons, but she's a good friend. At that moment, Vermal claims that she worked hard today and deserves a treat. She approaches Alto, requesting his mana through a kiss. Afterward, Alto asks why she needs to drain mana. Vermal explains that she was sealed for centuries, leaving her weak. Without Alto, she wouldn't even be able to maintain a human form. The boy feels grateful. He's gaining a lot for a low price. However, his familiar responds that having a demon as a familiar is entirely unfeasible for regular magicians. They'd either explode from within or have their mana completely drained. In Alto's case, he possesses what's necessary for the contract. Vermal also mentions other ways to drain mana besides the kiss and asks if he'd like to try while she caresses his body. Alto thinks the kiss is just fine. Thank you for watching, my dear. Press the like button and subscribe to continue. See you next time.